Aloha, this is Mary for Build Vibrant Health podcast. Today we have Michael Donahue on. I'm really excited to interview him. It's a little spontaneous. We just got out of a jump in the ocean and wanted to chat with him around communication and also Monsanto. So a little bit atypical of a podcast, but Michael, you have been what do you call it? Hairdresser, barber?
Both. I've been a hairdresser and a barber for about 25 years.
And we went on a car ride the first week I got to Hawaii, and I just thought our conversation was worth expanding and sharing with more people because you had some really interesting insights in communicating and just working with a lot of women in your lifetime cutting hair. What are some things that you've learned about women in your time being a hairdresser?
I guess I've just learned a lot from women, basically how to listen to women, how to understand and communicate what they want to me, what they want from me, what they're looking for, whether it be for their hair, or are they coming in because of something else in their personal life. A lot of times I realize that women aren't always coming in to do something with their hair, but maybe to feel better about something else going on in their life. So
That's really true.
a lot of times women, men, people will come in, they're going through relationship issues, they want to go through a change, they want to change everything about themselves, yet they're not maybe the ones who need to change. Maybe it's the situation they need to change. So sometimes I've learned to dissuade them from doing erratic things with their hair.
Like what?
Well, a lot of times women will be like, my boyfriend didn't want me to ever have short hair. He said I'd look like a man, so I want to cut all my hair off. And I'm like, well, how long was your relationship? Was it 3 months, 6 months, 6 years? I'm like, if you cut off all your hair, it's going to take 2 to 3 years to grow back. So do you want to think about now this other thing that you did to yourself based on a relationship that you had that lasted 3 to 4 months, and now you're dealing with it for 3 to 4 years? So instead of letting something smaller go, you're now carrying that with you longer and more resentment.
If they don't like their haircut.
Well, if they don't like their haircut, even if they do, sometimes it's not. We're not always doing things because we want to. We do them because we think we want to. I realized. Plus, I learned a lot of other things from women, like motives aren't always what they seem. But I mean, that's with all human beings. Men and women are very similar in that aspect. Like, I did plenty of women's hair that would talk to me and tell me that, oh, you're doing my husband's hair today. You did such a great job. I'm going to bring my boyfriend tomorrow. Things like that. And you're like, you see this two-sided, three-sided, this coin where it can be rationalized. You know what I mean? There's this rationalization that they make to themselves that it's all right. Yet now I'm here with a moral consequence. Now I'm made friends with this gentleman, and I'm supposed to not tell him about his wife's boyfriend.
Ah, interesting.
So now this has been passed on to me instead of you know what I mean? Now I'm passed on with this karmic, or this reality that doesn't.
You're the third-party person without asking to be in the middle of something. Yeah.
So there's always been different issues and things, but the thing about it is, like, is that woman communicating that she wants to cut her hair short, or is she communicating to me that she needs a change in her life and she's looking for advice? And maybe she's coming to a man for her hairdressing because she's looking for a male's perspective. Well,
it's really interesting because, looking back, I've gotten my hair cut when I got divorced. I've gotten my hair cut after a breakup, or like after I moved to a new place. We do, and is that a way of externally trying to like fix things or trying to like validate things when we could be internally shifting things, and the inner reflects the outer. And I do think kind of clearing up clutter from our lives, whether that be cleaning our room or our house or our car, getting our hair cut, that can also be really helpful.
It's a
in the
cleansing.
physical realm. It is a form
an
of
energetic
cleanse. So I think
cleansing.
it can go both ways.
I do cleanses, and when I do cleanses, a lot of times I'll shave my head all the way and start over. And it's almost to cleanse off all of the baggage. Like, your hair is made up of dead skin cells, dead cells. So you're basically, those dead cells, that's energy that has come through your body and is now being expelled. And when you cut that off, it's freeing, because you're no longer carrying that dead weight. Maybe what was the relate from that relationship, or maybe it was just the weight from this, or maybe it was the toxic foods or the toxic environment you were in.
Yeah. Speaking of toxic foods and toxic environments, and this is, I guess, where it relates to health, the health aspect of it. Your hair might not grow as fast if you're not eating the right foods, or if you are exposed to a lot of toxins. Your hair can turn gray, and you can age faster. What kind of like, is there any sort of nutrient trauma, or like, is there any? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, trauma causes premature aging of your hair loss. It can cause all those things, as well as diet. And silica is like one of the best things you can add to your system, because your hair is mostly is made of silica.
Right. Or is there anything that you take, or like foods that are higher in silica that you would take yourself, or you would recommend?
Well, silica has a lot to do with your hair. So I think bamboo has a lot of, like, bamboo extracts, bamboo. You can make tea out of it, other things. That's good for your hair. Obviously, protein, is going to be good for cell growth.
Amino acids, building blocks of protein.
Yeah, exactly. Spirulina is good for hair growth, any kind of growth, skin, your hair, all of those things.
MSM, horsetail, those are two herbs that are really helpful as well.
Yeah.
If you can source them locally, especially the bamboo, like you were talking about, that's easy to get in say, like Hawaii, where we are right now, to make tea out of.
Rosemary is really good to stimulate your hair growth. You can put rosemary into your scalp, put it in your hair, and oils into your scalp, or into like shampoos. Tends to stimulate hair growth.
It smells good too.
Yeah, black sesame seed, the Chinese used to say, was really good for making hair color, to prevent hair color loss.
Do you know why?
I'm not sure. It's just I don't know if it's a wives' tale or it's the truth behind it, but a lot of ancient knowledge is there for a reason.
That's cool. I take a supplement called Renew Hair, Skin, and Nails, and that has a lot of those herbs that we mentioned, and a couple extras, but that is really good stuff. And I've noticed my hair. Do you think my hair has gotten longer since?
Yeah, it has. A few inches.
A couple inches.
It's probably all that raw milk you've been drinking.
Maybe. Hey, I mean, there's a lot of amino acids in there, right?
But
what did you think of the raw milk?
I didn't have any.
You did. I made you some.
Oh, you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
With the egg and everything too, right?
Yep, the primal shake.
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah. Did you drink it again?
Probably.
Yeah.
I didn't get digestive issues, and I tend to have digestive issues from milk, so.
Right. It's the difference between high quality unpasteurized versus the pasteurized milk. So for you guys that are listening, the primal shake is raw milk. Highly recommend pasture raised. These cows are super happy because they have a view of the ocean every day. And they're very cleanly fed and treated well. They're happy, healthy cows. So the primal shake is raw milk, a raw egg, and then I put a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg and honey in it, and blend it all up, and it's super yummy. It kind of tastes like the milk after Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah. I think one of the best things for your hair and your skin and everything else is the ocean.
Yeah.
I think the ocean water and the sun and everything, I think it has all the minerals and everything that your body needs. And so I feel like that's really good for you. I know sulfur baths, like in Iceland, and different hot steam vents and such like that, is really, really good for killing eczema and clearing up other skin issues, which is definitely a big problem I see all the time, especially with men, and scalp issues. And I know for a fact that wheat and the GMO and the overly pesticided wheat is a big cause of hair, scalp, and skin problems in a lot of people, and especially doing more men's hair these days. I see it constantly, where I have men who are drinking, beers that are, crap, basically. Not that even the good ones are probably even bad for them, and the fact that the wheat that's being used to produce it these days is made from wheat that's been sprayed with Roundup 3, 4, 5 times to triple the production.
Right. I mean, it has a whole effect on your whole body. I've never thought about it from like your scalp.
Yeah, well, digestive, and then digestive
right.
comes through your skin, right? So when your digestion's going bad, when you have too many sugars or you're filled with candidas, you're going to notice it in your skin. You're going to start having blemishes. You're going to have all these other issues. Well, also with the wheat, that's why there's so many Italians and other people that are gluten intolerant now. And, people are like, oh, it's fake, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, when you're having digestive issues, skin issues, all of these different things, obviously there's something going on.
Right.
And if these are people, I mean, we have used, breads and grains and, all these things for centuries to sustain large populations. And why is it now that people are becoming sick from it? Or allergic?
Or why you can go to Italy. I just had a girlfriend and her husband went to Italy, and the pasta and the food there was totally different. A lot of people can go to Italy or Europe and eat the pasta and the breads no problem because it's not sprayed with glyphosate. You lived on Maui for a bit, and that is like, we were just talking about that as well, a huge place with Roundup, agricultural issues.
So the pineapple fields were used for years for, obviously they were used, Maui Gold pineapple, all these different pineapples. But they're one of the most highly pesticided fruit crops. And because of that, there's tons and tons of Roundup in the soil. And then there's also the sugarcane and the burning of the sugarcane that is horrendous, or was horrendous, and isn't anymore, but the poison is still in the land, at least 6 or 7 years till you can certify it organic once you test it. I've done that here where I've tested soil and had it turned certified organic. But that doesn't mean all of it's gone from there, and that doesn't mean that cross-pollination of crops, and Monsanto's been on these islands for years, Kauai especially, where they spray Roundup all the way up to the school doors. And there's been a huge problem with autism, not just autism, but lymphoma. My ex-girlfriend's family had bought in a house down the hill from the pineapple fields where the runoff would run down into their organic garden. They ate out of their organic garden, so they thought, every single day. Obviously, it was their property. They never thought to test the soil. And they all, the grandmother, the grandfather, and the mother, within 5 years, had all died of lymphoma. The kids had issues with their lymph nodes and immune responses. Quite a few of their friends that grew up in those areas had autistic children or autistic brothers and sisters. Only until they closed down did they admit any wrongdoing, and once they declared bankruptcy, or basically that company had closed down, did they even admit to it.
What company?
Alexander Baldwin at the time. Okay.
What year was that?
I'm guessing 2016 is when they shut down, 17, maybe a little bit later.
Gotcha. You were showing me the pictures of the sugarcane burning, and I wish I could show the listeners a visual of it, but it was wild. I mean,
mushroom clouds, basically.
Mushroom clouds above the sugarcane, and when that's all burning, the glyphosate and all the chemicals that are herbicides are used.
Well, and all the plastic too. So they line all the grounds with plastic and plastic piping, and they would do illegal burns, but they would use, at least as far as I know, the knowledge that I was passed along to, was they would use the dividends basically from state funds or incentives from the government to pay the fines. So they would continue to burn even though the burning was actually considered illegal. And not only would they burn the sugarcane, they would burn all the plastic piping, and they would burn the plastic tarps. And my house would be covered in black ash in the morning. My car would be covered in black ash. My house would be covered in black ash. Sometimes the burns would get out of control, and they'd come up and almost threaten the houses and where we were living.
Wow. And how far were the sugar plantations from you?
Oh, well, the sugar plantations were 3 roads. They would burn up to 3 roads, close to 3 roads, right up to the housing community. And then they would also, when they would burn in maybe one road from my house in Paia, where I used to live, they would burn up to that. And at that same time, all the centipedes and the spiders and everything would come out of the woodwork because it would all be chased out of the burning fields.
Wow. So do you feel like your health has shifted in ways since moving away from that?
Yeah, I
moving
feel
away
like
from Maui to
I
Big
know
Island?
it has.
Yeah.
I know from my case and from my ex's case, she moved off the island after being here for 3 to almost 4 generations. Their family was here. 4 generations their family
That's
was
why
here.
she moved off Big Island?
She moved off Maui.
Oh.
Well, she moved off Maui after her family all passed away, and they basically lost, they were priced out by the wealthy. They were forced to sell their property for health reasons and to take, and the loss of everything. And so basically the whole family had lived off the land and the compound that they had for generations, and they were all forced to leave.
That's so sad.
And, and her health, as she said, has gotten tenfold better since she's gotten to the mainland.
Do you think had she moved from Maui to Big Island, her health would have gotten
I believe it would have gotten better to
Right.
an extent, but it's hard to say, and it depends on where. She was also prone to sun, being 100% Norwegian, so she had suffered a lot of skin damage in Hawaii. Being close to the equator, being from Norwegian descent. So
I have noticed that about my skin. I've been getting, even though Arizona, where I was coming from, I got a lot of sun there. It's different. It's a lot more potent here.
Yeah, when you're close to the equator, we're 14 degrees in either direction we shift. That's why we don't have time changes. So yeah.
And what do you love about your job?
I love making people feel better. I love being able to change people's lives and the way they feel about themselves, whether it be their persona or anything. I can make people, I can turn that pretty blonde into an emo goth girl, or I can turn that emo goth girl into a pretty blonde,
Right.
So.
And you're really easy to talk to, and you're funny. You have a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
I most of the time don't like guys cutting my hair because I feel like, this is in my own experience, guy hairdressers, in my experience, don't listen to how I want my hair cut. And I say I want to trim, and I've gotten right before I got to Hawaii, I got my hair cut. And I wanted a trim, meaning less than a half of an inch, and then he chopped off 3 inches.
Was he gay?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. He probably just wanted you to look like a boy.
Okay, he didn't cut it that short.
Teasing.
But that is something that, if you're listening and you cut hair and you're a guy...
Don't take it personally. I was just joking.
Right. No, I was going to say, know what trim, what does trim mean to you?
Well, trim means a half an inch. Or I say dusting. So when somebody wants to take the tiniest bit off their hair, but wants to keep growing their hair longer, dust it, meaning taking off just the bare minimum. You make the same amount of money if you're a hairdresser. Think about it. How does it hurt you to take off less of your client's hair to achieve the goal that they want? You know what I mean? You may not think it doesn't look as good, but that's not your choice. Your choice is to do what your client asks, do the best you can at it, and if you think that they could do something better, then you can advise them. But if they don't want to do that and they're set on their ideas, then to do what they ask. A lot of people enter the industry thinking about making money, and that's not why you enter the industry. You enter the industry because you enjoy doing it, you want to make people feel good, or you like making people beautiful. I love making, people come in feeling, I've had women come in, sit down in my chair, crying, before you even talk to them or touch their hair, and they're like, make me a blonde, my husband's cheating on me with a blonde, and you're like, well, if he has a blonde, why don't I make you a redhead? He doesn't have a redhead. But truth be told, that's not going to change anything. Obviously, there's something else missing in your relationship, or there's something that's not clicking one way or the other. And that's a communication issue you have with your husband, and you might be having the same communication problem with your stylist if you come in and say, make me a blonde, knowing you have black hair, and then lying to your stylist saying, oh, I've never dyed my hair. But then realizing 4 months ago you dyed your hair. But what, that doesn't matter. Well, that's only 2 inches of roots, so that's why your hair looks like a Mai Tai.
You were telling me a story when we were driving about, was it your ex-girlfriend or cousin or something?
No, it was my ex-girlfriend's friend.
Yeah.
Who made terrible choices in her life. And one of those terrible choices was having me cut off her hair. And the other terrible choice was threatening me by telling my girlfriend she would say something horrible to me, to my girlfriend, that I did or didn't do, just to make me cut her hair. Mm-hmm. So by threatening me, I cut her hair, which made her look horrible. But that was because she wanted a haircut like my girlfriend. My girlfriend had spirally curly hair, and my girlfriend, I cut it into like a perfectly little round afro of curls, and she had this beautiful red hair and freckles like Orphan Annie, except built like a brick house, you know? And this girl was, you know, local girl with the bushy, curly, but not curly, but wavy hair, almost like horsehair. And basically, if I was to cut it that short, it was going to look like somebody had, you know, like a relaxer that had gone bad. You know, basically like if you ever watch Cops and there's that crackhead running up to the car with a real bust up hair, that's what she would look like. And I told her that. And she was like, no, I want to look like your girlfriend. I want hair like your girlfriend. And I'm like, well, you don't have hair like my girlfriend. And I saw her years later, and she was going home with a friend of mine who was a really bad decision. Like, he's a good friend of mine, but as a woman, I never advised them to date or see my friend. And we were in a car, and I didn't realize it was her. I mean, her hair had grown back out, and da-da-da-da-da. And she's like, oh, yeah, this one guy cut my hair one time and cut it short. I was like, oh, yeah, you. Did that stylist tell you that you shouldn't cut your hair? Yeah. And did you tell him that you were going to threaten his girlfriend? Threaten him with his girlfriend, or saying bad things to her about him? And she's like, yeah, how do you know? I was like, because I was that hairdresser. And you make terrible decisions. Have fun tonight.
And she still went home with him?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's interesting, like how deeper of a perspective you have than just cutting hair. And you can probably see a lot of patterns with women and with relationships, and
yeah, I mean, a lot of women thought I was gay before I started doing their hair, so they would tell me things that they would only tell another woman or a gay man, especially if they thought I was a catty gay man, you know.
Yeah. Well, everyone maybe not everyone, but everyone loves a good like scalp massage, or like a lot of people like physical touch.
Oh, they love it.
And that's what you.
I actually made a lot of money just doing
doing
shampoos. When I first started out, women would be, oh, if you rub my hair for another 5 minutes, I'll pay you another $10 in tip or whatever, or pay you a little bit more, you know, for just that, you know, sensation. And everybody loves it. I mean, like, men love the feeling of having a clipper on their head. It feels good. It's soothing. It's the sound will make you fall asleep almost. It's relaxing, especially if it's somebody you trust. And generally, when you're with your hairdresser, it's somebody who knows more about you than your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever.
Well, I hope not.
No, a lot of times it is, because we tell people that we know the least, but we see the most, more than we tell our own significant others about personal things in our lives, because we talk to them about the people in our lives, because we don't have connection to them. We can tell them.
Your guard might not be up, or there's maybe a different perspective that you can.
You're in that
lend.
energy field where somebody's touching your head, somebody's touching that sacred part of you, right? And so this is, you know, it's an intimate act, even if it's not intimate, in the sense of like you're putting trust into somebody, you know, and you're putting your ego in somebody's hands. So it's a personal thing. Like, you're putting how somebody's going to view you, or how you view yourself, which is probably even more than how somebody else views you, you know. And so you tend to get into these conversations like, I'm not going to tell you know, you're not going to tell your partner all of the things that are going wrong in your relationship, because you're scared, because you're afraid that you're going to lose that relationship. You're afraid that they're going to see it negatively. But you'll tell your barber, your hairdresser, to ask for their advice in the situation. You know, because you need a third source. But you can't call your mom and be like, oh yeah, like the sex is crappy, I don't really know to tell him what to do or her to do, you know, like it's just stagnant, oh, it's like a dead fish.
And these are the kind of conversations you have in the chair?
All the time. All the time.
Well,
you know?
and I think it goes
I know
to
what's wrong with the bachelor party or the bachelorette party.
I think it goes to show like how many relationships are like conscious versus unconscious. Like how many people are not consciously communicating their needs and desires and like building and like healing and growing together.
Yeah, people,
If they're not able to bring that in conversation to your partner, to
people
your
are
wife,
more scared of the people they
husband.
love the most than they are of most things, you know? Because what are we afraid of mostly? We're afraid of losing what we care about the most, right? Which, you know, generally is in love or money or this, that, and the other. That's why people stick with jobs they hate, because they're afraid of losing the security. Same reason they stay with partners that they hate, because they're afraid of losing the security. And they might even hate the partners, but they're afraid to talk to them about what they need because they're afraid of losing it.
Or they're afraid of the unknown, or they don't love themselves deep enough.
Or they don't love themselves deep enough. And a lot of times that's why you're looking for all this outward, you know, approval.
Through getting your hair cut or through someone else, when really
the poorest people I know
lies
get their hair cut the most. The richest people I know care the least. But that's because people are worried about how the world around them judges them. But if you have so much security, it doesn't matter. You don't care how people judge you. That's why sociopaths tend to be the most carefree, and people love sociopaths. That's why people love people like Donald Trump and these charismatic people. You know, they come out there, they say whatever they want, and they have no fear. That's attractive, to have no fear, to be carefree. So we're always attracted a lot of times to these things, but they're not always the best things, because we want these things, but because we want them doesn't mean that they hold the same value. And so we see it in somebody else, and then we want to emulate it, you know, so you see this person and you're like, let me think, it's whether it be a celebrity or this, that, and the other. But the thing I've learned from, you know, being in different socioeconomic situations throughout my life is that every single person suffers the same things. We all suffer the same way, whether it be loss of family, health issues, anything really, loss of love, you know, all of those things, loved ones, you know, we all go through those things, and we act like we're so different. But the truth of the matter, no matter how much you have in your pocketbook, when you lose your mom, you're going to cry. When you lose your dad, it's going to hurt. When your child dies before you, it hurts more than anything on this planet. But these are all things that every person basically goes through between life and death. You know, unless they're spared by some great means. But generally,
well, and we can look at it as loss, or we can look at it
education, growth.
as education or growth. Or I've been exploring the concept of death a lot and what death is. Actually, ironically, where we're sitting, like, we can see the memorial plaque. This point that we're sitting at had a tsunami. What year? I don't know what year it is. 1956, I want to say. 1945. This entire bay that we're looking at. This entire bay that we're looking at, you couldn't see the water, and it just completely. There's a bunch of little kids and school teachers. There used to be a school down here that were going to admire the ocean on April 1st, ironically, going to admire the ocean, and there's this big tsunami wave that came and wiped out a lot of the kids and the teachers, and now there's a memorial plaque here. And every morning I come down here and I'm reminded of the impermanence of life, and so we can look at things of we're losing it, or we can choose to look at death in a different way. And I think so many people are afraid of death.
Yes.
And afraid of loss, but why?
Because it's the unknown again.
It's the unknown, right?
You know, that's where spirituality comes in for a lot of people.
Right. So maybe you should call yourself like the spiritual hairdresser. You have your own little niche.
There you go.
All right. Well, thanks, Michael, for this conversation. I hope you guys gained some insight from it. Any last parting words?
Don't threaten your hairdresser. Unless you want to look like a crackhead with a bad relaxer.
All right. Open to interpretation. Thank you all. Have a good night or good morning wherever you're tuning in from.